0685.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Boston Black News. I'm Ron Bell, your host. It is really exciting to be here on this Friday, April 28th. It is sunshine, but it's going to rain this weekend. But that's all right. But we're really excited. We have our state senator, Liz Miranda, here this morning. We're really excited for her in her first 100 days plus so that we can talk a little bit about what's going on in our city throughout the district. It's the fifth Suffolk. Second Suffolk.
Yeah.
Because you was fifth Suffolk when you were state rep.
Yes.
So it's all these Suffolks. Okay. Now with the redistricting and all that, it's like really confusing.
And people are still having a hard time.
Yeah. Because, do you know there's a special election Tuesday?
Yes.
May 2nd. John Santiago, former state representative John Santiago, was just promoted to
Veteran Secretary.
Secretaries of Veteran Affairs, right?
Yeah.
Under the Mara Driscoll.
The Mara
Driscoll administration. And, it's just a lot of different changes going on. I just want to say, welcome to Boston Black News. I'm so glad to see you. No, seriously.
No, I'm so glad to be here this morning. I just want to say good morning to all of you, to both of you, and to everyone listening. It's been a really intense 4 months.
Right.
I always say to people, it's been 4 months, 4 weeks, and 4 days.
Okay.
And I've counted every single one because you feel every single one.
Well, we got.
It's been very interesting.
So we're going to tell you doing it in 4 minutes.
Yes. No, we're going to do it.
Okay. No.
And thank you for the opportunity.
Yes.
One of the things I was actually talking to yesterday to a group of people is how important radio is to the Black community.
Right.
And we should be consistently, as elected officials, not only like posting online, sending newsletters, creating forums, but we should actually have television shows and radio shows or go on them.
Right.
Because our people are listening. And so it's important to come in and say, hey, let me give you a little update of what's happened in the first 100 days.
Right.
And then share where I'm thinking we're going in the next 100 days.
Right.
Before the summer.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Pastor Wall, who founded Boston Praise Radio and TV and Boston Black News, has been doing this forever. Like he's a pioneer, right? And one of the reasons I came on board was the fact that I was tired of seeing folks who don't look like us giving news, and because folks trust us to tell them what's going on in our communities is so effective. So I'm glad you mentioned that because
and
it's so important.
I think we need to do more for Black radio. I mean, they low-powered radio stations struggle to get the funds and resources and to move out of regulatory issues so that they can actually do what they want to do. But I'm really excited also. Think about it, the Bay State Banner.
Yeah.
After 40-plus years exchanging hands from the Miller family to someone like Ron Mitchell that's a veteran, still in media, I'm excited to see where that goes beyond print. You know, news needs to come more than just on a piece of paper.
Right.
And so I'm excited to see what he does and his team with our beloved Bay State Banner, just like Praise Radio, like making sure that it's great, not just good, but like, does Pastor Wall have everything he needs?
We're gonna make sure we'll talk about that afterwards. But anyway, so let's talk about our first 100 days. I remember Dr. Carolyn Crockett was on the broadcast a couple of weeks ago, and she reminded me because I kept wondering where do I know Liz Miranda from? Because first I thought the Tobin, then I thought Boston Do Something, then I thought My Town,
maybe Dunk the Vote.
And Dunk the Vote. And I was like, I know her. 'Cause I remember when you were younger. And I was like, wait a second. And she reminded me you was giving the tours.
Yes.
And I had just left the Mission Hill Community Centers, and I became the director of Boston Do Something, which was,
a lot of my friends were part of Boston Do Something.
The board.
Shauna. And Hearn.
See, y'all are dating me now. Okay. But so let's talk about it. Yeah.
So one, I think I'd be remiss if I don't talk about, the loss of Melvin H. King, right?
Yes.
I was fortunate enough to have a mentor like Carolyn Crockett, who met me on Dudley Street as a student from Yale working at DSNI. So many of our leaders either came out of that community organizing and youth organizing, and she said she was going back to school and thinking of something, but she also believed and loved Mel and learned a lot from his organizing work, Stopping the Highway, building Tent City, and being at MIT and being an elected official. A lot of people don't know that. He was a state rep for over 10 years.
Exactly.
In the same district that had Byron Russian, Dr. Santiago, and now we'll have John Moran because there isn't competition.
Right.
And I got to meet him and know him and love him, and I just think it's been a profound loss.
Right.
And I hope that we as leaders, not just political leaders, but leaders in every sector, learn about his unifying message, focus on the people, and hopefully work together across sectors to solve the most pertinent problems we have. The other thing is Carolyn Crockett is also a treasure.
She's incredible.
She's changed my life.
Yes.
I was talking to Kevin Peterson the other day, like my first 4 jobs, I remember them vividly. One, registering people to vote with Kevin. Doing stuff at My Town and in the South End where there was lots of youth programming at the time, and then working at DSNI and OP.
Okay.
Those 4 jobs really changed the way that I looked at myself and the way that I looked at my community. So the last...
Well, can I just interrupt? Wait a second. You know what? So you got the organizing guru, right?
It's in my heart.
It's in your DNA because, when you was running for office, I have to say that was a good campaign.
Thank you.
And it was horrible. It was a horrible day on election day, right?
For some people.
But for some people. No, I'm just saying as far as like the weather. And leading a couple of days leading up because of the transportation. The transportation with the T stations. It was just really brutal. But I seen you everywhere. I was like, that.
Yes.
See, I say that's an organizer.
Well, I also think that I must say this. I had a lot of respect for the people I was running against.
Yeah.
They throw their name in the hat. They build their agenda. And people, loved all of us, but loved us all differently. And so for me, I stayed ready and prepared because I knew that they were going to bring their A game. So I had to bring my A+ game.
You had to put your head
in the rain, and it was like crisscrossing the district. A lot of people don't know the 2nd Suffolk includes now parts of Hyde Park all the way to the South End.
Right.
It's much less JP than it was in the past, and it's much less South End than it was in the past. But we now have the Blue Halav corridor all together, which is super important because it's had 2 senators and multiple reps for way too long. And this is one of my pet peeves, is that Blue Halav, to me, if it gets the investment and the attention it needs, I think all of us in the Second Suffolk would do better. So
Yes.
let me give you a couple
Okay,
of highlights.
good.
But I had to do that because none of us get to where we're going alone.
Right.
And I want to share that again.
And we want to talk about the intergenerational disconnect that we can connect so that we can be better for all folks.
We need to do that.
Yeah.
We need to handle it soon. So
Yeah.
I got inaugurated in January.
Right.
Had a big community inaugural celebration. That same month, we file our bills.
Right.
So I filed 75 bills, and I'm co-leading on 20 more. The bills are in every part of society, but I think the top four: health equity, economic opportunity and mobility, education, and then the criminal legal system. And we'll talk a little bit later why I've decided to focus on these four areas, but there's bills on everything from housing to transportation and beyond. Secured $31 million already for the youth jobs. I do believe that most of what I work on is directly related to the experience of growing up in the city of Boston. And growing up in a community that went through so much, and realizing, if we want to solve gun violence, it's not just gun laws,
That's
right? It's youth opportunity. And so super excited with the young people that came from across the state to do that, $31 million. I'm on Ways and Means. So for the folks that don't know what that is, that's the money committee.
That's right.
And I'm on the joint committee of Ways and Means. I've got to host a hearing where hundreds of people testified. I crisscrossed the state to hear from people. What do they want us to spend our money on? So the governor released her budget, the House released their budget, then the Senate released our budget, and the House just went through their budget deliberations, and the Senate will be doing that in May. And that's very important for the folks who are listening. If you want us to do things differently out of this $56 billion budget. And let me make it very clear. $56 billion is just...
That's with a B, by the way.
B.
For listeners.
Billion.
Yeah, okay.
Is the pot of money that the executive branch, her secretariats, her cabinet, and the legislature spends their money on. But there's billions of other dollars beyond this one budget. And make no mistake, Black communities have never gotten their fair share. Third is we got our committees. And so I mentioned being on Ways and Means, and I'm on 5 other committees, but I'm chairing racial equity, civil rights, and inclusion. And I really hope that committee, I'm doing that with Rep. Bud Williams out of Springfield.
Right.
And we're going to have a very busy year holding our, like a mirror to state government, not just the legislature, but the entire state government about what they're doing about racial equity. Right now, if you've listened to the news, there's this complicated conversation happening around taxes. And tax packages and tax relief. And we will be doing that in June. The House also did that. But the whole point is that we, in my belief, can't keep giving tax breaks to the wealthy. There's overconcentration of wealth in white communities and white families. And we want to make sure that we are giving tax breaks to families and to elders and to communities that really need it. And one of the taxes that I'm really supporting is the brownfields tax. And so people say, well, what the hell is brownfields tax, and why do you care so much about the environment? And I tell people all the time, because it's making us sick and we're dying. When you think about our communities, they were done by design, redlining. Talk about brownfields is because most of our land is polluted. When you think about Blue Hill Ave, the reason why there's so many vacant lots is because actually there's lead in the soil. Some people burn homes. Some people took their companies and put all the stuff underground. The greatest correlation to toxicity is race. So Blacker communities have poorer health outcomes. And the last two things that I think are really important to know about the first 100 days, I hosted the president of Cape Verde. And, I'm Cape Verdean and really proud of that. But more importantly, he was the first visitor to the Healy Driscoll administration, and is African. The Black community in Boston is not a monolith.
Come on now.
We represent many different countries, the Caribbean, Haiti, the Dominican Republic. We think about Cape Verde, but there's also a huge population of Nigerians and Ghanaians and Somalians and Ethiopians. And so what's important for me is that I lead from a place of love and lead from a place that says everyone belongs. Everyone belongs. And so that visit was very important. Caribbean.
Yeah.
Cape Verdeans have been connected to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for well over 200 years.
Mm-hmm.
And black people, I just want to tell you, we've been here since
I like the way you say
1637.
black. That's
Black,
right. That's
you know.
right. Come
I
on
think
now.
that sometimes people want to debate whether I'm black or not, and
Yeah.
it just needs to stop.
Stop it.
You know, I've been
Right.
black my whole life.
Right.
You know, the idea that, you know, I'm not because I'm fair skinned
Right.
or because I represent a different ethnicity is not true.
Right.
You know, you don't say Mel King's not black because he's Guyanese
Right.
and Bayesian. You don't say someone's not black because their ethnicity comes from a different place.
Right.
When communities get here, whether it's through the historical slave trade that many of our families came up from South Carolina, Alabama, or whether
Right.
they came from the coast of Africa, which had the slave trade since the 1400s.
Right.
When we get here, our destinies are tied.
That's right.
Our destinies are tied, and it's super important that I share that because yes, I am
We're
proud.
going to go back to that.
Yeah,
one,
'cause that's a big thing.
That's a big thing.
It's a big thing in our communities, and that's how it's how we are divided.
That's how we're divided. You know,
Yeah.
I could tell you from Boston, right?
Yeah.
Because you know the story, right?
Yeah.
And it is so important that we talk about the story because so often what you just said is not said out loud. It's said in silos. And what happens is that folks get into their little corners and then it is used against us. And that's why we're in the position we're in. You know, for someone who was born in Boston, grew up in Boston, and I see the changes that are going on, it is very disappointing. But there is opportunity. So when I'm listening to you, it's refreshing for me because the next generation is going to carry that torch along with the elder generation.
It is.
Because it's not just, oh, our future leaders, these are future. No. Let's not disrespect or disregard what has been done.
Yeah, because we, like I said, we don't get anywhere alone.
Right.
But the other thing is for someone like me,
Right.
I'm not a baby. I'm 42 years old,
Right.
so I'm a whole adult, right? And I think sometimes folks also make it seem like I'm 25.
Right.
But the idea is that we stand on shoulders of people who've paved the way.
Right.
Like there would be no Liz Miranda without a Senator Wilkerson.
Right.
There would be no Liz Miranda without a Representative Marie St. Fleur
Right.
or Charlotte Golorici. And we have to make sure that we're remembering
There you go.
and building at the same time.
Right.
Yesterday I was somewhere, and I just want to share a quote, and it's really deep. You know, people ask me all the time, like, how do I have hope? You know, and I say that there is this pendulum between despair and hope that Black people understand in this city.
Right.
And the reason we go through these things is that Boston and Massachusetts doesn't like to tell the truth. You know, I'll think about something like I was a Black history major, and I studied under some really important people, Dr. Vandermeer at UMass.
Oh, yeah, Tony.
Shout out to them and Jemadari, Dr. Kamara, but also Tony Martin, who was at Wellesley. And he was a Garveyite. And he did a lot to teach us as Black women from all different corners of the world, different economic statuses, that the true power in our educational achievement will be understanding of self and understanding of community. And in that, I learned that, you know, we've gone through a whole lot in this country. We've gone a whole lot when they stole us and brought us to this country. But there's this notion of Black people who've been fighting over time who still had hope. They saw that the work they were doing was not for their generation or even the next generation, but generations 3, 4, 5 generations ahead. And I'll give an example. I'm a Delta. You know, very proud to be a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Well, I went to, I played Troop Psi Phi.
Okay.
Me, Phi, me.
Me, Phi, me. You were GDI in the way that we like to talk
No,
about it.
well, my first year of college, I went to Cheney State University
Cheney.
in Pennsylvania, right?
HBCU.
Philly. Right. And what happened was folks were trying to get me to pledge. And, you know, being on the basketball team, we said
Yes.
Hoops Sci-Fi. But it got to a point, it's like, no, I'm doing my own thing.
I
Anyway,
never heard that, so we should use that more often. Hoops Sci-Fi.
Hoops Sci-Fi.
But, you know, Deltas in 1913
Right.
walked in the suffrage march that gave white women the right to vote.
Right.
They didn't give them the right to vote. They wouldn't get the right to vote till 45 years later.
Right.
But they knew that what they were doing was disruption.
Right.
And that they were preparing a plate for us.
Exactly.
You know, that it would come to the civil rights movement. We finally would get the right to vote again for Black men, and then finally for Black women. But it wasn't without a fight. And so I'm coming to you with a couple, you know, tidbits on what has happened in the first 100 days. But I want folks to know a couple of very important things. One, I want to shout out my staff.
Okay.
I have been only working with 3 people, and in the Senate you get 5 or 6. And we're just hiring the 4th and 5th person like next week.
Oh, wow.
And so we've done a lot of this work with them. So shouts out to Kevin, Malia, and Rochelle because it's been hard.
Right.
We're also moving our offices. So we'll be in 519.
Okay.
The People's House, the State House. If anyone wants to come visit, we'd love to have you.
Right.
I also have a district office on 492 Dudley Street, and we're going to keep that for a couple more months. But
That's good.
It is. I've had a district office
I
for
didn't
3
know.
years.
Okay.
And people come there all the time because they don't want to go to the State House. But we're soon going to be thinking about being in Mattapan.
Okay.
And it's very important for me and my team to be in different locations because everybody knows me on Dudley Street.
That's right.
We've done
You
the
got
work.
that.
I grew up there.
That's right.
But it's important to be somewhere that is faced with a lot of challenges. And being in Mattapan Square is really important because of what's going to be happening with Mattapan
Right.
in the next few years, but also because of the Haitian migrant situation.
Right.
People are being dropped off every day, everywhere across this state, and we've got to do a better job of resettling
Right.
our Haitian brothers and sisters. And I think if we're in Mattapan, along with, I'm not going to share which city council I'm going to work with, but people should know based on my
course,
relationships with the closest people,
Right.
that we hope to serve the people in community and making sure that we have a presence and maybe in a neighborhood that doesn't have the presence that they need.
Right. Well, one of the things that you were scheduled to come on a couple of weeks ago, and I had an incident and I couldn't make it. And then the following week, you was determined to get back in here, which is really good. I really appreciate that. And you were going to call from one of the House of Corrections.
Yes.
And I was like, that's important work. I want you to come in the studio when you're available. Just talk about the work that you're doing with brothers and sisters behind the wall.
You know what I'm really thankful of? Sometimes you don't see blessings in disguise necessarily. And so I want to thank, my brothers, my father, my birth father, because through their pain of being incarcerated and my father and brother being deported and losing a brother to gun violence, I've done a lot through them and for them. And because of that, I also was passionate about other people that are incarcerated. And I just want to share a win that we got this week that I think is super important because it's unique. So last year, we passed a bill called the Jail-Based Voting Bill, which essentially returned access to the ballot box for 8,000 to 10,000 incarcerated people, pretrial detention, and those serving a misdemeanor. Well, we couldn't stop there, and so the Democracy Behind Bars Coalition, which includes many brothers behind the wall at Norfolk, and that's where I was at Norfolk, meeting with the brothers of the AACC.
Okay.
We wanted to further a bill on felony enfranchisement, which is important for our communities to understand this. We could vote if we were incarcerated with a felony conviction up until 20 years ago.
Right.
And then a Republican governor, because they were organizing in the jails in a way that gave them such a voice and so
They put
power,
me out.
They were
put
doing
me
that
out.
work. They were?
They put me
They
out.
didn't put you out. They did.
Put me out. They put me out.
Put you out of business?
No,
because
let me
they
tell
were
you,
so
I was
good?
organizing in the jails with Arnie King. It was just coming together. It was this group. And I used to go up there, and it was not a good experience for me. They said, when I used to walk through the yard, and then one day they said to me, "You are no longer allowed up here," because what I was doing was not only organizing the brothers, but organizing people that they were related to outside of the wall.
And it's important. I want to let people know the people behind the wall are not throwaway people.
Right.
They actually are brilliant and they're organizing. And so we just passed out of committee a constitutional amendment to amend the Constitution of Massachusetts to return the right to vote for 5,000 folks serving time. And for folks that are listening, they're like, why should we care? We should care because 58% of the incarcerated population in Massachusetts in the DOC system in our 15 jails are black and brown.
Right.
Yet we only make 18% of the state's population.
That's right.
So we're 3 times more likely to be incarcerated than to be represented in sort of the census blocks across the state.
And that comes with money.
Yes.
Okay, so folks know.
We spend about $100,000 a year incarcerating black and brown people, particularly black and brown young men. There's some statistics, for example, life without parole. Mm-hmm. We are tied with Louisiana. We're number 1 in the nation for the percentage of people serving life without parole. Currently in our jails, 1 in 5 people are serving life without parole. Now, if I didn't dig deep, I'd be like, well, they did something bad, and most people would say they belong there. Mm-hmm. But actually, it's because we over-sentence black people 8 times the rate of white people for the same crime.
Right.
And when you have people that you're sentencing to die, where's the rehabilitation?
Right.
Why is it called the Department of Correction if you're just sentencing people to die? It should be the Department of Death.
Right.
Because we're sending young people, in many cases, 18, 19, 20, 21, with joint venture crimes to jail to die. In some cases, when they go to jail, the people that are their co-defendants who pled guilty sometimes are out while they fought their crimes because they're... So the work I'm doing in the jails is not by myself. Rep Holmes goes consistently once a month. You have Rep Roral, who took the 5th Suffolk, who has gone to visit at least 3 jails since he's been in office the last 4 months. We are growing because your elected official, regardless of where you live in Massachusetts, has the privilege to visit any state institution anytime
they want,
for any reason.
Right.
And you know what you're talking about, that retaliation?
Right.
You did a good thing. The bad thing was that the governor succeeded in making it seem like you couldn't do that work.
Right.
And the brothers behind the wall couldn't do that work, but it only was because of fear.
Right.
It was out of fear because the brothers started a pact.
Right.
Do you remember?
I remember. Oh, I know.
You know, they were going to get us elected. So,
well, I want to work with you on that.
Thank
I want to
you.
talk.
I would
more.
love to.
Yeah, because that is my passion. And I was just cut off. And it was like when I started Dunk the Vote in 1992. It was like folks were like, I was the only one. Folks were looking at me like, what are you talking about? And I was like, do you understand what's going on? So it's really important that we focus on the population behind the wall because there are people.
There are people and there are families.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've visited now 11 out of the 15 facilities. Mm-hmm. So I have 4 more to go to be the only elected official that's visited all the DOC facilities. I've met with 350 people. But you want to know what the beautiful thing is? Mm-hmm. Out of those 350 people, like half a dozen to a dozen have been released, either through the work around wrongful convictions, whether it was the Criminal Justice Reform Act that downgraded juvenile litigants so that they would not be charged with adult crimes, and so many of them have served their sentence and are out now after 20 years.
Right.
And so the beautiful thing, and they helped me.
Right.
You know, the other shout I want to give is to Rep. Nika Lugardo, because both her and me, we did things differently, but we still engaged with a lot of incarcerated people.
Right.
And they helped us in our races.
Right.
They were calling their families. Some of them, you talk about being in the rain, shout out to David.
Yeah.
David served 20 years.
Yep.
In Concord, and he was like one of my best door knockers. He was outside.
They did work, man.
They work. And so I'll come back and talk about that because I think our communities, I know our communities need to really work on celebrating those brothers and sisters, but also helping them.
Right.
Because if we on the outside are more vocal, their experiences on the inside will be better.
Right. I want to circle back on what you had mentioned as far as the first 100 days, ways and means. And one of the things we're doing here at Boston Black News is to really educate our people. What is ways and means? What is a line item? What is, the secretaries? Because folks don't know.
Yeah.
I remember when I worked for Governor Patrick, folks would ask me how much it costs to come in the State House. how much it costs.
Yeah, because they don't know, because we
really
haven't
don't know.
been allowed or promoted to be there.
Right.
But I want everyone to know there are 200 legislators, and we'll be doing some videos, because what we heard from people was those exact same things. Like, what's the difference between a rep and a senator?
Right.
Then some people would come
Or a
to
state
us,
senator and a
a
U.S. senator.
A lot of people think I was in D.C. I was like, nah,
Right.
I'm right here up the
Right.
street.
Right.
But folks told us to do it differently, to do radio, to do reels, to
Yeah.
do podcasts, to do
Right.
little videos to explain how
Good.
a bill becomes a law.
Right.
But I just want to quickly go over, and I shared this every time I've been here, but I think
Okay.
it's important. Your elected officials, particularly in the state level, do four main things. Pass laws, amend laws. The second thing, take a piece of the state budget and redistribute it, or push folks to distribute it equally or equitably across the state.
Right.
The third is constituent services. We help
Right.
people.
Right.
And in my case, we take federal stuff, we take city stuff, and we just get it to people. Because the majority of my job is getting people to do their job.
Right.
Right. And the last thing, which is the most important thing, people are like, well, why do you say that? Because it should be laws and money. I was like, yeah, it's laws and money and constituent services, but it's the championing of causes.
That's right.
Because when we elevate something in our platform, like, for example, I work a lot in maternal health. Black women are dying.
Right.
Our babies are dying. 4 years ago, we weren't having this conversation. But because Black women like myself, Black women like Rep. Tyler, Black women like Rep. Brandy Fluker Oakley definitely said, hey, nothing for us without us.
Right.
We elevated that conversation, and now maternal health and Black maternal health is in everybody's mouth.
Right.
But that championing of causes, whether it's gun violence, whether it's voting rights,
Right.
Whether it's poverty alleviation, whether it's education, we have a huge platform, not only outside the buildings, but in that building, to be able to say, we don't speak for all Black people. We're
Right.
not a monolith.
Right.
But we speak for a majority of Black people when we say that we deserve, we've earned this piece of this pie.
Right.
You're not giving us a handout.
That's right.
This is our money too.
All right.
This is our state house too. And so I'll be back to talk about the carceral system here in Massachusetts.
Okay.
Because I think people need to learn the truth.
Right.
And the statistics are actually worse than I thought. When I used to visit the jails, I went for my brother, and then I went for other people that folks would say, hey, can you visit my dad?
Right.
Can you visit my brother? Can you visit this person, my spouse? And then what I learned is that the conditions were far worse than I'd ever imagined.
Right.
So thank you for asking me about those things.
Yeah, well, thank you for being a guest on Boston Black News, because it's like rejuvenating for me to hear this. Someone from Boston, someone who really is passionate about doing things and getting things done. Thank you so much. You have
Thank
final
you.
words for our audience?
I just want to say 3 things about myself. I'm teachable, and I'm reachable. And those are the 2 most important things I want folks to listen. Like, I'm not perfect.
Right.
I don't know everything. And I'm looking forward to meeting people in my district who want to help further the agenda. And I hope that the people that weren't with me in this race, and the people maybe who don't like me or have an issue with me, got some smoke,
Right.
that they can come around to understand that we can still do good work together. We don't need to be best friends to be able to get this agenda across the finish line.
Right.
And the last thing I want to say to folks is that everything is political.
Right.
And so as you're listening to radio, you're watching Facebook, and you're trying to figure out, well, why should I care? Why should I be involved? Know that all of our lives are dictated between the decisions that are done at the federal level and at the state level. And we desperately need our communities to be more vocal. And so I welcome that. I'm not afraid of smoke. But, what I am afraid of is not hearing from people.
Right.
And I want folks to know that I have an open door policy.
Right.
And I'm looking forward to representing in this big tent, everybody.
And you from here?
Yeah, I'm from
That's
here,
right.
Dudley
You
Street,
from-
02119. You know what I mean? I went to OB. And I see the phones blaring. I hear y'all. I see y'all. I got to go do a live. I feel bad. I'm like,
Okay.
Pastor Wall, should I do a question? It feels like, I got 2 more minutes in here. So
Well, I mean, are there calls coming in? We don't? Okay, well, you know what? We're going to be right back. State Senator Liz Miranda. We'll be right back.
all right. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Somebody in here has been waiting on an answer. I don't know what you've been going through in your lives, but tonight, I believe the Spirit of the Lord has prophetically spoken to me to speak to you that your answer is in the house tonight. The Bible says in Isaiah 55:11, the word that goes forth out of his mouth, it shall accomplish that which he sent it to do. And I like the back part of that. It's not going to return void. I like that part, but the part I like most is that when it arrives to its destination, it's going to prosper. Somebody said, wow, because that's the Spirit of the Lord encouraging you in here tonight. So we just came to let you know that God's promises are yea and amen. The Bible says in him, his promises are yea and amen. In the NIV version, if you read that, I believe it's in 2 Corinthians 1 and around verse 20. The back end in the NIV version says it's guaranteed. So tonight, we just came to encourage you tonight to let you know that there's a guaranteed yes in the house tonight. I couldn't even get the response I was looking for. Now, see, some of y'all, in the natural, you may have gone to a car dealership. You may be going to a mortgage lender to try to get whatever you need. But tonight, we came to encourage you that your yes is in the house tonight. Tell somebody, my answer is yes. Because see, when God makes a promise, he can't lie. In Numbers, it says, God is not a man that he shall lie. But then it goes further and says, the blessing that is given, it cannot be reversed. So the yes that God gives, Dad, it can't be reversed. Tell somebody, I got a yes and it can't be reversed. It's nothing the devil can do about it, not your situations. My answer is yes. I feel the presence of God. Tell somebody, my answer is yes. I feel the presence right there. Tell somebody, my answer is yes. It's a yes in my spirit. This is not a yes, I will obey, yes to your will, Lord. I'm just accepting the guaranteed yes that you have already promised me. My yes is guaranteed. Woo, I feel like dancing on that time. Some of y'all been waiting on some answers in this place tonight. And the Lord just set up December 1st, 2006, not for Jonathan Nelson to report, but for you to come here and get your hands up. He set this date up in the heavens before the foundations of the world, just so you can come into this place to get an answer of yes. I gotta move. Tell somebody there's a yes out there, and it's got my name on it.
Welcome back to Boston Black News. We're here in the morning, Friday morning. Very good. It's very nice outside. Kind of chilly, but we just had State Senator Liz Miranda here, and she just broke it down, the ways and means, and her first 100 days. We have elections coming up. It's just really, we're in spring. Spring, is it spring?
Yeah, it's spring.
No, because you know why I say it's the spring? Because sometimes it's spring, summer, winter, fall in one day. But anyway, we have a wet teammate here who's running for Brookline Town Hall member, precinct 4. I'm thinking about all these different precincts because we just had Liz Miranda here. And the election this Tuesday. We also have elections coming up this Tuesday in Boston. As you know, former state representative John Santiago just was promoted to Secretary of Veterans Affairs for the Healy Driscoll administration. And so that seat is open. And there's a couple other seats. 9th and 10th Suffolk State Representative. So remember, polls open at 7 a.m., close at 8 p.m. Make sure you go cast your ballot. It's very important. As you know, we're celebrating our 30th anniversary of Dunk the Vote, and we are working on your Know Your Government Guide. State Senator Liz Miranda had just talked about ways and means. We want to learn together about bureaus, different ways to access services in City Hall, State House, and on the federal level. So we're putting a guide together that will be ready this summer, like summer to June, not summer today, but June, so that you can know. So tell us a little bit about what you're getting ready to do with this new venture. I know you're an actress. I know you're a comedian, stand-up comic, and you're an organizer. You love your community. And now you're running for office.
You know, and then can I also mention that Miranda? Yeah, we worked at the radio at 1410, the base of Boston.
Okay.
For a short while.
I remember.
Yeah,
I
did a little bit of radio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're comfortable. Okay, so take over. Your show.
Yeah.
So that's interesting because I do remember that.
Yeah.
And I remember you was okay. I do remember that was
fell on my a lot of things just kind of fall on my lap, just like this experience here. I'm just interested. I guess before I depart this planet,
right.
I want to experience governance and how we're actually affected. I mean, we are like our everyday lives are affected by the rules and laws that affect the governance in that neighborhood, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like. And this is just an opportunity to learn how it's all done.
Right.
Like, these are actually decisions that are being made in rooms, of your neighbors, like, and who actually have input on, how things run in your town.
Right.
So,
well, and it's important you say that because a lot of folks don't know what goes on in their neighborhoods, and they live in the neighborhoods. They reside in the neighborhood, but they really don't live in the neighborhood because they don't realize the resources. They don't know the ordinances and laws that are in place that affect them. So that's important.
Especially, Black and brown people,
Mm-hmm.
we're often not asked, what do you stand for, or what
right.
do you believe in,
Mm-hmm.
or you things are often happening to us and we never sort of know that we or are aware that or invited to actually have an input or have a say.
Right.
And hey, I don't like the potholes on my street.
Right.
It damages my tires, and I have to get tires more, new tires more often per year because of these potholes that I just, accidentally, drove over.
Right.
Just things like that. That's a small example, but, can you, go to someone? Can you talk to someone about that? Who gets involved about, about how, fixing that pothole on your very street? So, and if you have problems with like childcare, or if you have problems with, affordable housing, if not problems, but like you kind of wish, it's almost like a wish too. It's like, oh, I kind of wish that, I could have, affordable housing and, in this really rich neighborhood. Oh my God, I really wish I could live. What? Okay, I'm sorry.
You know what? You're making me laugh. You know why? Because I had a meeting with Tom Pillar. I don't know if you remember Tom Pillar. He worked he was the director of operations at the Milton Access TV. And a few years back, you and I did a skit with Trump.
Yes.
And you was Hillary.
Yes.
You was Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking about that while you're talking. I'm trying to keep a straight face because he said he wants to tune in today and want to hear some jokes. So, but we're going to get the serious business out of the way first. We're going to get the serious business out of the way first because that wasn't fun. It was you.
I can't believe we did that. I had a wig. We wore wigs and everything.
It was so funny. I had a Trump wig and Mark Conrad, who was a former Milton police officer. He was Lester Strong.
Yes. I didn't know. I forgot that he was a former police officer.
Yeah, he was former, and he also was the former executive director of the parole board for the state of Massachusetts. But so pardon me from like grinning, and I'm going to keep a straight face because this is serious business. Let's get to the business first.
Okay.
And then we can just go right into.
We can have some fun, and honestly, I'm actually having fun.
Okay.
Although this is business,
okay.
I'm truly having fun, just being involved and actually getting to know my neighbors. You know, I'm not just a brown person walking down the street anymore. I'm actually someone that could potentially be, someone that you could talk to if I win. You could talk to me about certain concerns that you have in the neighborhood.
In Brookline. That's interesting.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's because honestly, I could tell you this, and this. I grew up in Mission Park,
right?
And I would come home at 3:00 in the morning in my own neighborhood, where that most people, non-black and brown people, would probably think is scary. You know what I'm saying? But I don't feel, if I'm walking home 3:00 in the morning, never feeling afraid. I moved to Brookline, just up the street, and I was actually more afraid walking through Brookline.
Interesting.
And felt uncomfortable walking through the town when I first moved there because I was, a minority. So am I safe? Will people get freaked out that a brown person is walking through there, walking on their street? Like, I could just feel the energy. So it's just so it really helps to get involved too, because now they have a name with a face, and they know that you live on their street, and they know that and they feel safe. It's so we're, as black and brown people, we're still having to prove that we're not dangerous.
Right.
And that is the vibe that I get. It's just like, okay, how can I, how many things can I wear? Or what can I put on, put on every day to show you that I'm not dangerous?
Right.
And little me, I've never fought, I'm not a violent person. You know what I mean? I've never been a violent person. But it doesn't matter.
Well, I don't know about that. I was listening to your skit. You really acted that part out.
Which part? Wait,
it was the one you cussed like a sailor.
I do cuss like a sailor, and I'm not gonna cuss today. I promise.
Okay.
I really
you might get our license revoked.
Oh, see, okay, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. No, I can do my jokes without the cussing.
But yeah, so how has the experience been running for office? I mean, it's because folks don't realize. I mean, although it's a local seat or local office member, it's still interacting with people.
Yes.
It's still the level of stress. It's still all these things that are going on, and you still want to get to the finish line and be successful. How has that experience been?
It's been an ordeal. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's like sun up, sun down. It's just asking for help.
Yes.
Asking for people to campaign for you. And I've never and I sent out messages to friends thinking they weren't going to help me. And then I've gotten responses.
Right.
So it's just like, wow, okay, this is interesting. Like just when you, and then you have to figure out who you are, what you stand for, and that's been an interesting experience too. Like, because one of someone on the select board in Brookline asked me a very interesting question. He said, "What do you stand for?"
Right.
And then all of a sudden, a flood of just feelings came over me, because I was like, no one's ever asked me that before.
Right.
And, and how can I, let's figure that out. And then the thing is, like, you also have to hone in, you have to focus in on just specifically your town as well. There, you stand for many things.
Right.
And I stand for many things. And hopefully, all of those things will be addressed, or I'll make efforts toward them in the future. But for the time being, what do I stand for within this town? Like, the place that I live, like, what is it that I want to see changed? Or, so the first and foremost is affordable housing.
Right.
So, so just being able to maintain my residency there for as long as possible, and then of course, some people might think, well, you have to think bigger. You have to, you don't have a broke mentality type of thing. It's like, sure, but I'm just being realistic about where I am right now. We'll make those changes and grow, and of course, do whatever you got to do to, increase your income if you want to make more money. Yeah, strive for bigger. You know what I mean? That's fine too, but today I'm, my little self sitting right here. This is my budget, and this is all I can spend on rent. So please, help me out here,
right?
Because the housing crisis is really bad
it's
all
real
over
bad.
Massachusetts.
Right.
I don't want to live in the outskirts of some town I don't even know about. You know what I mean? So they're pushing us out.
Yeah, we have 2 minutes left, and before we're going to go to the second broadcast, but can you just tell us a quick joke?
Okay, sure. So I was born in Eritrea. Okay, and all that means is that I don't have a birth certificate. Most Eritreans of my generation don't. So when we come to the States, we literally pick a birthday like it's on a menu.
Right.
So my mom was like, "Okay, who wants September? Anyone? Anyone?" So they gave me June. So my birthday in the States is June 10th, but I was actually born on the 17th. 1 week off, no big deal. But if you ask my mother how old she is, she'd be like, well, I'm between 35 and 95. And I'm like, what? Okay, Mom. Well, can I help you out? Do you remember how old you were when you married Dad? And she was like, of course. Between 8 and 27. I'm like, what? Okay. Yeah, I don't think I have any more time for that joke, but yeah. Anyway.
Okay, we're going to be right back. And we're going to continue with T-Man. Be right back.